Hello everyone, my name is Jenny B. I'm an astrologer and a teacher, an energy healer, and I work with the vibration of Archangel Metatron. So I just wanted to explain why this video is coming to you so close to the new moon. My daughter, she's always had a seizure disorder, but she never has had like a full-on episode. We can tell that she's having seizures when we hook up the electrodes to test. And then, the way that they present typically is that she'll be walking along, going to, I can see like she wants to go sit down in this place. And she'll get there and she'll just sort of stop, like she doesn't know what to do. And that's because she has, that stuff going on in her head. Everything misfiring, and she can have like a full-blown seizure during those tests, and she doesn't do anything. You can't tell at all. But we went in for a routine surgical procedure at the end of last week, and while we were in pre-op, they were just taking her vitals. They hadn't given her anything. Nothing had happened that way. But yeah, she had a horrible seizure. She didn't breathe for a long time. Her eyes rolled back in her head. She was choking. It was horrible. And so I needed a few days. I didn't realize, I'm kind of used to emergency things, because it just gets to be part of your normal. I just thought that we would skip that because she's 20. So I didn't think that it was still going to happen. I thought maybe that, she wouldn't have to deal with that. So that's why this is so late. I appreciate those of you who let me reschedule our client sessions. That was very kind of all of you and everybody who sent me messages after I posted on Facebook. I think I must have been in shock because I don't post that stuff on Facebook, but I did. So, anyway, she's okay, and we're, gonna have to adjust her meds and all of that good stuff, but she hasn't had anything happen since then. Just problems sleeping, because when they have that seizure activity, they have a hard time sleeping. So, but last night she slept really well and everything is much better. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. I also wanted to, maybe we'll just get into the video. We've got a lot of planets now retrograde. You can see in the chart, this is the chart for the new moon happening on the 23rd in Australia at 3:38 a.m. And in London, it happens at 6:38 p.m. on the 22nd, so Central Time for the United States, 12:38. So we have an 11, a master number. And in the sign of the master, if you look where the number 3 is, you see in Capricorn, at the end of Capricorn, Pluto and Jupiter retrograde there. And all of those, and Saturn, all of them, Pallas Athena is as well. And so we feel that. Obviously, like I was just going through Facebook this morning, and just so many, articles, one after the other, about abuse of power. That is a real thing. It is, there will be governments now who make a grab for like monitoring people. Obviously, the usual suspects will be part of that, but I've also heard stories from friends in other countries where, the government is overstepping. So it is real. It's just that we don't want to feed into that fear. I don't see, as far as like vaccines go, I think that really what I've been shown is that, everyone will be exposed and then we'll build up sort of a tolerance. I don't really understand it, and I'm not a doctor. But, I don't know that, in the United States, I don't see that we'll be forcibly vaccinated or anything like that. But the fear when you see Pluto and Saturn retrograde with Jupiter expanding that energy, there's a lot of fear energy out there. And Metatron asked me to run this chart showing the quintile aspects, which are, if you break the chart into fifths, it's like the energy of the pentagram, the angles that we're looking at. And those are about, quintile aspects are about creativity and creative gifts that you are going to manifest here on the earth. And I wanted to address something that, and it goes along with this, with the astrology and with the video and what's happening with the new moon in Gemini. Someone had made a comment. It was pretty bad. I was going to tell you guys the whole story, but I don't want to waste time. But, you know, the last video I made was really heavy subject matter. And so you just know, you know, people may be triggered. And so I think the video had been up for a couple of days, and then I had someone making some pretty, I mean, I had to not allow them to comment anymore on the page because I don't like waking up to nasty comments. And something that she said stuck with me, and I realized that in listening to the person that she was mentioning and listening to their teachings, there's something very important missing in the teaching of duality. So because this is in the sign of the twins, the mortal self and the higher self, the immortal self, I want to just explain how all of this works. Now, before we begin incarnating, and people that have gone to and near-death experiences, more than one of you I've talked to has had one. There were shows dedicated to them a while ago in the United States, people talking about their experiences and what happened to them when they passed over. And many times people go into the light. They talk about how they've never felt so much love. We get a piece of that, like when we start sessions with me, if people are relaxed and following the flow of the meditation, we go into that energy while we're still alive. But when people pass over and they go into that light, they talk about how that light is comprised of, you know, I don't know, it's hard to say, innumerable amount of little orbs that make up that light. And you are we are each one of those orbs that make up the energy of the Alpha and the Omega, which is a vibration of frequency and energy of pure unconditional love. The Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, how it all began. And I've spoken about when I did the twin flame video, that orb of light then is transferred, becomes one with some matter. Like for me, it was Arcturus. And then we are formed into a singular being, is what Metatron is saying in that process. And the point of then incarnating and going through the evolutionary spiral is to remember, at some point we remember, oh, wait a minute, I'm not this matter. I'm actually an orb, an essence of pure unconditional love. So yes, when we're here, we're light and we're shadow. And in every single minute, we decide how we're going to play it. Are we going to play it from a place of love and happiness and joy, or are we going to react as the shadow? And, you know, that's in every single minute, you're creating your future. There isn't like a set agenda, is what Metatron is saying, that there are times when, you know, he's saying that someone may have incarnated and said, like, I'm going to do the shadow, and then, you know, partway through having a very rough time, they start crying out for help. That may be when their awakening starts. But there isn't like a laid out, your birth chart is not like a map that this is what's going to happen. Your free will dictates what happens. And, you know, we change soul contracts like that we have before we come in. We change them all the time while we're here. I mean, I do that in healings with people every single day when there's something that's out of balance. And typically our soul contracts, a lot of them are out of balance. And so, it's important to recognize why we chose to have the contracts go that way, why we feel that it's safer for us to be treated as less than. A lot of times it's because we don't want to be taken advantage of, so we allow other people to take advantage of us instead. But, in my sessions, we clean a lot of that up, and, we rectify the arrangements, is what Metatron is saying, that those soul contracts then can be redrawn in a harmonious manner, a harmonious arrangement, so that there's equal benefit for everyone. A lot of times, as light workers, we can short ourselves because we are still dealing with programs of having to sacrifice, having to suffer, all of that good stuff that's linked, that's in our DNA, and it has to do with religious ties. And so when you awaken and you recognize, like, oh, it's not just me living this life, this mundane life, and I come down here for 80 or so years, and then I go back up, and that's it. When we awaken, it's when we remember that we are the light. And when we do leave and begin incarnating, at some point, and for me, it happened, what I saw was, it was like directly when I left the light, there's a feeling of loss. And we can turn it in the psyche, and the part of us that is young and vulnerable can believe that we did something to separate ourselves from the Creator. But it's really coming to the knowledge that you cannot be separate from the Creator. You are a part, you are a spark of that light. There is no separation. And all of the other orbs that we were enjoined with are people who now on this planet maybe don't like the politics that we like. Maybe they, don't want anything to do with this in the here and now, but somewhere else they might. Like I've shared that, where I am, somewhere else right now, like we're here, and then we're also each of these places, and in this place, this is the center, and it just goes out from there. That's how the quantum field works. And it looks like a honeycomb. It just goes and goes and goes, and it actually keeps going, or keeps growing. Like it's multiplying all the time. Just like in the physical world, we know that the universe is always expanding. The multiverse is always expanding. And that's reflected in what's happening in the metaphysical as well. And somewhere where I am an attorney. I'm not very nice. And my mother is believes what I believe now, and my partner. And they're trying to convince me. And I don't want anything to do with it because that's not my role there. Everyone just comes in. It's like the Doors song that I talked about. We're thrown into the world, a dog without a bone. We don't have opinions or believe that this is right or this is wrong. That's something that comes through the DNA. It does, but it also comes from the influence of family and what their opinions and objectives are. And that thinking is reflected in the third house of our natal chart, or in Gemini, or with our Mercury. I can always look at someone's third house and see whether or not they were able to express their needs and wants, and whether or not they were paid attention to when they did. And a lot of times as little kids, these agreements that we have coming in that we took on, the soul family sits down and says, okay, who is going to fill this role? And then it's like the individual souls that decide, okay, I need that lesson, that works for me. And then you sort of arrange it that way. And I don't remember what I was saying right before that. Okay, and so he's saying that as we come into the knowledge, our conscious selves, that we are a spark of God, a spark of that light, then we begin to consciously interact with the higher self, because the higher self never leaves us. The higher self is always there, always talking to us, always guiding us. Most of the time it comes in as thoughts. Especially when we're asleep. Like sometimes people can just hear something, even though they have no idea of any of this stuff going on. And that's, an angel or your higher self that's always there and guiding you. But once you recognize who it is that you truly are, then you're able to sort of combine efforts and have that harmonious connection with the higher self. And, that bridge is built then through that knowledge. And we're able to have guidance from the higher self. The higher self is never like standing over us telling what to do. My higher self's advice to me is always to be kind to myself. And they're sort of like, I think of her as like an older sibling. And in my dreams, she's been Nene Leakes or Jennifer Lopez. She's funny. So she keeps me entertained, is what Metatron is saying. So I did pull some cards. I think I'll just go through the astrology before we go over the cards. So this is these quintile aspects. If you look at that yellow giant triangle, basically what you see here is disharmony. What you see here with Mercury and Venus at the same degree, while Mercury is ruling this new moon, that's harmony. Archangel Metatron, the representation of him in an asteroid Heimdall, which means the guard of the bridge between heaven and earth. He's at that same degree where Mercury and Venus are as well. So that's harmonious. That's happy. And then between them, so we've got disharmony, and there's you right in the middle of the action. Chiron, the wounded healer. And so this is really a time when we're allowing ourselves, like all of that going on in Gemini, in the Gemini house, Pluto, Saturn, Pallas Athena, and Jupiter all retrograde there. We're allowing like doubt in ourselves to fall away, lack of confidence to fall away. And we're aiming toward, he's saying, the higher vision for our lives. The plot is there that you would come here and recognize that you're a spark of God, but the story is not complete. You fill in the blanks of the story. And obviously, there are things that we agreed to do. A lot of that is shown, and here she is, Vesta. She looks like a vessel filled with, there's the flame coming out. And a lot of your commitments that you made before you came in are shown in your Vesta. Mine, for instance, is in my 5th house in Leo, and it's conjunct Gabriel. So I would bring messages on some sort of stage. And those are agreements that, we contract with, and it isn't like it's against our free will. We choose to do it. I don't know what would have happened if I would have said, like, I refuse. I did for a while. When it first came up, I was terrified of getting on camera. I remember one time, it was my twin flame and a lot of angels, Metatron, obviously, but a lot of them were around. And I was saying, why can't I just do what he does? And he doesn't have like a job that anybody could do. But he was like, that's true. It's easier because he would never do this. But I came around, and it got to be something that I enjoyed. I don't like being so late. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't like it that this is 2 days before, but it was completely out of my hands. But otherwise, I like doing it now. And, Chiron is the wounded healer. That's the wound of self, where we believe the stories that we're not good enough, that we don't have what it takes to succeed. So this is really about reprogramming the mind. And I know I talked about that a lot in the last video, but this is the 8th house where this is happening, where Mercury, the ruler of this new moon is the 8th house. That's the Scorpio house. So we're still in that energy a lot. The good news is that once we get through facing the shadow, and I don't know that we're ever completely through with it. I mean, I've been doing this pretty intensely. I do a lot of self-work, and it's been going on for years and years, every day. But there's still there's still things that come up, to be healed. And it's important that we are able to differentiate between the shadow in us and the pain in us. That was one thing that my consciousness that Metatron worked on me with was because the pain, which looks dark when you look at it energetically, it's not like evil, it's pain. Anytime that there's anybody acting up, it's because there's something to heal. It isn't because they're bad. So it's really, this is the time that we reprogram our minds and really start saying to ourselves, you're amazing. You're all the things that you would say to a little baby, that you wanted to encourage and to make happy. You say those things to yourself, to the inner child who was taught that what she wants doesn't matter. And then when he brought up about and I'm going to have to, this is by, sorry, I have another one of her decks over there, but I don't see it. I'm going to have to put the deck in the description box and try to check the description box because I typically leave a lot of information in there. But the first card that I pulled yesterday is the box. So there you are, the spark of light. There's your family, your DNA, your circumstances, your situation, where you grew up, what country you live in, all of the things that are around you that bring you comfort, that are familiar to you. And we're in that box, and he's saying, ready to have ignition, for it to come to you, to recognize this isn't all that there is, my comfortable little box. And the way that I'm used to doing things and the traditions and things that I'm raised with, I'm allowed to leave that behind and to blaze a new trail. And when we're in that box following along, we want to do something that makes us successful. But a lot of times then once we earn that amount of money and we're comfortable, he was talking about then it's sort of like we're imprisoned in that idea of success and what the world calls success. And maybe we put aside what the desires of our heart is or what we really wanted to do. And this is especially true with men, because we don't want to lose status. We want that big house and all the things that make it look like we're successful. And so we don't chase the dream that we originally wanted because we're trying to fit into that box still. And then we come to the place where we recognize that we are part of all that is, that we are a spark of God. We are an expression of God having an experience on this planet. And that knowledge is healing. That's Chiron. Recognizing that we're a part of all that is, that we've always been completely loved and accepted. And when we've taken on the contracts where we play the shadow, that was divine just as much as when we took on the light lifetimes, when we decided to be the light, that it's necessary, it's important, somebody has to do it. And we exchange those roles. Sometimes I'll get on the phone with someone and they'll say, in this many lifetimes this person did this and this to me, and that's true. And the important part is to look at why and what happened on the other side of that, and not to feel guilty or bad about it or condemn ourselves for it. Those agreements, when people signed up to be a part of that story, that was their choice too. It wasn't just our choice. That's when we're caught up in the illusion, when we're so fixated and tied to the illusion, that we can't see past it. We can only, that's what it has to do with, he's speaking to, a lot of times we harbor resentment and blame in our heart and stories of being victimized. And when those stories are still there, you will keep playing them out. Sandalphon's been bringing up the song, the seasons go round and round and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on a carousel of time. We can't return. We can't go back to that space, but we can only look behind from where we came. We learn the lessons of the past and we move forward in a different way. Otherwise, that wheel that we're on, we stay on it. It's only through love and forgiveness of those soulmates that we contracted with who have done terrible things to us, or so it looks, and forgiving ourselves for having allowed those things and having been part of that contract too. And it always comes from a place where, we believe that in order to fix the separation with God, we should be punished or show remorse by dragging the regret around with us. And all that does is just breed more of an energy of that. So he was talking about, with this new moon, breaking out of the box, leaving behind the conventional thinking and what you're expected to do, how society sees that you're successful, leaving all of that behind and blazing a new trail. We all have the ability to heal ourselves. It's really changing our thinking and seeing ourselves as, Metatron always says, the prize. And when we don't recognize fully that we are a part of the light and we feel at home and comfortable there, we will keep trying to fill that void, because part of us knows that something is missing and we'll look for it in other people. That's why people get hung up on the twin flame thing, because they're trying to fill it with that. And it doesn't work like that. It's really us filling that space with the unconditional love of the Creator, allowing that love to fill our heart. And then that draws in whoever the partner is, when we feel content and happy within ourselves and remember who it is that we are. So anyway, everybody, I wanted to also, because Gemini has to do with communication. That's why I'm hoping I get a chance to make that video about Metatron coming up shortly, because the sun just moved into Gemini a few hours ago. So this is by Jonathan Quinton. I don't know it says Sacred Geometry for You, I believe is his website. I don't think I got this from his website, but this has to do with Gemini, because Gemini is communication, and that's symbols are the first way that we communicated on the planet. And that, of course, goes to the metaphysical then, that the first thing that ever was, and I don't have one in front of me, was the seed of life. But I'm going to just read this to you. There is a profound order to the universe that stands independent of chaos, space, and time. The order is in the form of pure mathematical principles and can only be known to us through geometry. We ourselves are a part of this divine order. We are both a drop in the ocean as well as the ocean in a drop. We are a microcosmic reflection of the macrocosm and are encoded with all of the information of the universe, yet we use only a fraction of our full ability. The shapes, patterns, and forms that emerge from the circle and sphere are keys that can unlock our potential and awaken us to super consciousness and the interconnectivity of all things. Everything, every single thing is filled with sacred geometry. I balance that sometimes in sessions with people. If you're looking to create, or you're looking to start over now, try to get your hands on, or just keep around you, any pieces of sacred geometry. They will inspire you. It's the keys to creating, keys of creation is what Metatron is saying. Really getting in touch with the Creator, whatever way that you choose. I just like to always focus on the heart, because that's the first place where we felt the abandonment. We felt as if we'd been shut out. It's an illusion. It isn't true. But that part of us needs to be healed so that we can fully come into the presence of our higher self on the planet, with our, being one with the light body. And so that always, of course, starts with what we believe and what we think. And I have a quote he also asked me to mention, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. I've never heard his name pronounced, but it's Thich Nhat Hanh, and it is: the quality of our life depends on the seeds that are deep in our consciousness. And that's, some of it is what I talked about, in the last video. That seed that we're separate, the seed that we need to live up to to being perfect so that we can reclaim our status with the light, is what Metatron is saying. You already have that status. So it's just a matter of changing the programming and releasing the lies that come with the illusion, so we can come fully into who it is that we truly are and be that vibration of love and light for everyone and help to heal the planet. Because it's when everybody recognizes that we're all in this together, we're all orbs of light, we're all connected, that is when the new earth lives and thrives and we return to utopia here. Okay, everybody, I am sending you all so much love. And I hope that you enjoy this new moon in Gemini. It looks like we still, I mentioned, 6 weeks ago about the weather, when we had a fixed star in the configuration related to that. But, it looks like we're going to be real wet. I know where I am, we've had records for May, and it's not even the end of May. Michigan, close to me, just had 2 dams burst, I think it was. And then, of course, sending love and angels and prayers to everyone in Bangladesh, everyone dealing with what is happening over there today. It's going to be a very active storm season. It's going to be very wet. So that's in the astrology as well. All right, everybody. I hope I am back with you shortly. Sending everybody so much love. Bye-bye.